Unveiling sinister wilderness secrets, terrifying, hidden encounters with the haunted unknown. The shadows in Westwood Pines twisted ominously, creeping close to Sarah's window as if waiting for the last remnants of daylight to evaporate. The once cozy suburb now felt like a trap, each home hiding heart-starter secrets that pulsed in the eerie twilight. It was too quiet, the kind of silence that pinched at her nerves. She clutched her 20-pound laundry basket, staring out toward the woods flanking her backyard, where whispers rustled among the trees. "It's just exhaustion," she muttered, dismissing the cold chill that whispered warnings she couldn't ignore. But every night, the flickering shadows grew bolder, flicking across her periphery like dark fingers reaching out. Emily was spirited always. But lately, her laughter seemed to dim, and Sarah's heart sank when the vibrant energy of her 15-year-old daughter was clouded by an ever-thickening dread. Late-night worries coiled in Sarah's stomach, making dinner feel like a chore. She worked 2 jobs, each exhausting hour compounding the hollow feeling in her chest while praying for a signal that everything was okay. Yet, every thump outside sent her heart racing like a drum, every breeze outside punctuating the unnoticed fear lurking in the corners of their lives. They'd always heard the tales about the woods. There used to be comfort in such stories, but now they smoldered like looming ghosts in the corners of her mind. The turning point hit like a thunderclap one evening. Emily, usually glued to her phone, glanced up from the screen, her face pale, an unsettling twist to what had always been youthful glee. "Mom, there's this creepy account messaging me on social media. They say they know secrets about Westwood Pines, about us." Sarah's pulse quickened. She could try to dismiss the boyish hype, but the anxiety tightened its grip. "What secrets?" she asked, forcing a calmness that felt utterly fake. Emily's hands trembled, scrolling through the ambiguously taunting messages, the words twisting into a knot of terror in Sarah's gut. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." The whispered message lingered in the air, curling around them, suffocating the cozy familiarity that once surrounded their home. Days passed, infected by a sense of dread as Sarah experimented with obscure folklore tales whispered in the dark, haunting memories from her own childhood about a figure that haunted the woods. A child gone missing, a name shrouded in silence, echoed with a chilling familiarity. Each heart-stopping sound at night felt more than just mundane suburban worry. The trepidation mounted, painting Emily's face pallid, but no reassurance teetered in their fragile world. The final confrontation with the unknown loomed. As Emily started to mention the messages more frequently, her face clouded with fear, Sarah sensed a palpable threat hanging over them both. The shifts in the darkness outside became frantic as if a predator was listening, waiting for the right moment to strike. They needed to find answers. A surge of raw determination coursed through Sarah. She wouldn't let their fears become shadows in a never-ending night. And finally, it happened. An event so terrifying, so chaotic that it shattered the thin veil of their everyday existence. They would step into the haunting woods that had always seemed to guard sinister truths. The moment they crossed the line illuminated by their dim flashlight beams, Sarah sensed eyes watching from the tree-line, and it dawned on her that delivering the truth would turn their world inside out. A voice uttered her daughter's name from deep within, chillingly familiar. Emily. The whisper rode the wind, sending shivers down Sarah's spine. It echoed around them, and she began to realize, some legends were born from terrifying truth. The figures, the whispers, they were coming for them, and the heart of the woods awaited. Would they survive the darkness, or would the secrets of Westwood Pines swallow them whole? The forest loomed around them, thick and twisted like the dark dreams that plagued Sarah's mind. The flashlight flickered against the deepening darkness, its beam darting nervously over the trees, searching for what lurked just out of sight. The air thickened, heavy with those whispers that now seemed to crawl with dread. Each step deeper into the wood felt like a descent into madness, with branches clawing at their clothes as if begging them to turn back. "Mom, I don't like this," Emily whispered, her voice barely more than a tremor carried by the wind. The innocence that once sparkled in her eyes had been replaced by something closer to terror, and it twisted Sarah's gut. She turned to comfort her daughter, but Emily's gaze was fixated somewhere beyond the trees, somewhere they couldn't see. It made Sarah's heart race. "Let us just keep moving," she urged, forcing optimism into her tone. It felt hollow, but what choice did they have? The closer they got to the heart of the woods, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. Shadows clung to the underbrush like hungry predators, waiting to ambush. Suddenly, a loud snap echoed through the silence, a branch breaking underfoot, but not from them. "Did you hear that?" Sarah's breath came quick, her instinct screaming danger. Emily's eyes widened, and she nodded, momentarily paralyzed with fear. The trees seemed to close in around them, shifting like phantoms coming to life. With a surge of adrenaline pouring through her, Sarah grabbed Emily's hand and pulled her forward. They stumbled upon a clearing, where moonlight pierced the canopy in sharp beams. It was stunning and horrifying all at once, an ethereal beauty that sent chills down Sarah's spine. In the center of the clearing stood an ancient tree, gnarled and twisted, its bark like the skin of the damned. Symbols were carved into its trunk, dark and stained, whispering secrets long forgotten. "Mom, look!" Emily's voice shook, and Sarah's heart lurched at the sight of her daughter's trembling hand pointing toward the base of the tree. Buried in the dirt was something shining, a small, silver locket. The dread that curled around them intensified, as if the tree itself were breathing, its roots writhing in time with the growing sense of malevolence. Against her better judgment, Sarah knelt and reached for the locket. As her fingers brushed against the cool metal, an icy wind howled through the clearing, almost as if warning her to stop. There was a moment, a heartbeat, where the world seemed to hold its breath. Just as she was about to lift it from the earth, Emily screamed. "Mom! Behind you!" Sarah spun, eyes widening as she faced the trees. A figure materialized from the shadows, a twisted wraith with hollow eyes and an expression that was both sorrowful and menacing. It reached out, fingers elongating grotesquely as it whispered, "Help me!" The plea sent ice coursing through Sarah's veins. She took a step back, heart hammering against her ribs. She didn't understand what she was facing, but her instincts screamed for her to run. All rational thought fled as Emily's small hand squeezed hers tightly, grounding her in the chaos. Frozen in fear, Sarah could only whisper, "What do you want?" "Find me," the voice echoed, drifting through the trees as the figure faded into darkness, leaving behind only the hollow urge to know. The locket clanged against the dirt, tauntingly bright against the darkened earth. "What was that?" Emily gasped, eyes wide with terror. "I don't know," Sarah breathed, heart racing. "But we have to leave now." They turned to run, but the shadows stirred, and the sinister whispers surged around them, drowning them in a cacophony of dread. As the darkness closed in, they knew one thing: every decision they made from here on would lead them either closer to the truth or deeper into the abyss. What other secrets lay hidden in Westwood Pines, and who or what awaited to be found in the darkness? Running through the tangled underbrush, Sarah felt every nerve in her body electrified with fear. The forest closed in around them, each tree a silent witness to their terror. Shadows writhed like serpents, snapping at their heels as they dashed away from the gnarled tree, the locket left behind a forgotten token of fate. "Mom, I can't see!" Emily cried, her voice sharp with panic. Sarah tugged her daughter closer, the grip on her hand a fragile tether against the encroaching darkness. "Just keep running," Sarah shouted, using every ounce of strength in her legs. The whispers intensified, crawling up her spine, chilling her to the bone. They seemed to pulse around them, speaking in twisted tongues, words melding into a frightening chorus urging them to stop. Suddenly, a shadow darted past, close enough that Sarah felt the rush of cold air it left behind. She glanced to the side, catching a fleeting glimpse of movement. Something was following them. The realization fueled her panic, setting off a desperate sprint fueled by primal fear. "Faster, Emily. Please." Sarah's heart raced as her own breaths grew ragged, her eyes darting back to the clearing, feeling the regret of the locket pooling deep within her. With every step, the ground shifted and swayed beneath them, roots reaching out like skeletal fingers, clawing at their ankles, trying to trip them. The tree's presence was unnerving, looming behind them, watching, waiting. It couldn't just be a tree. The symbols carved into its bark throbbed in her mind like a heartbeat. Then, echoing through the silence, a low growl surfaced behind them. It was animalistic, primal, and sent shockwaves of dread crashing through Sarah's veins. She didn't dare look back. She couldn't. The sound grew louder, more insistent, as if whatever haunted the woods had taken notice of their flight. "Mom, I'm scared." Emily whimpered, her voice cracking, the innocence of her childhood stripped away. "Stay close. We'll find a way out." Sarah gasped, stifling her despair. She needed to keep Emily safe, to protect her from whatever lay ahead or behind. The path twisted before them, snaking into unknown depths, and the light from the flashlight began to falter, flickering in and out like a fading heartbeat. "Mom, the flashlight." Emily pointed, her wide eyes shimmering with terror. "Not now." Sarah snapped, reining in her rising panic. They had to keep moving. They had to escape. An overwhelming need to protect her daughter drove her onward, pulling her from the abyss that threatened to swallow them whole. Then, as if the forest itself had a mind of its own, the trees shifted. The path ahead vanished, their surroundings warped into a maze of shadows. The locket pulsed in Sarah's mind, calling to her. It was a beckoning she couldn't dismiss, even as dark figures flickered at the edge of her vision, creatures shaped by nightmares. "Mom, stop. Please." Emily stumbled, looking behind them. "There's something there." Sarah skidded to a halt, pulling Emily close as their backs pressed against the rough bark of a giant oak. The darkness around them thickened, coalescing into a grotesque form. It approached, gliding across the forest floor, twisting and reshaping itself as it neared. A face began to solidify, a visage of anguish that mirrored the tree's tormented features. Hollow eyes locked onto them, and the whisper echoed again, more insistent this time. "Help me!" Terror gripped Sarah, squeezing the breath from her lungs. The figure was alive, a tortured soul trapped in this desolate place. She felt Emily's fear clutching her own heart. "Run!" she ordered, eyes wild. But the moment they turned to flee, the figure lunged, a rush of cold air rippling past them as the woods erupted with frenzied energy, leaves spiraling like a storm around them. In that dizzying chaos, Sarah realized they were no longer just running away, they were running toward something worse, toward a truth that could leave them shattered, or bind them to the darkness forever. "What do we do?" Emily cried, tugging at her mother's sleeve. The woods loomed, closing in again as echoes melded into one sole mantra, "Help me!" And just when Sarah thought they might escape the encroaching night, the ground beneath them crumbled, revealing a dark pit that seemed to breathe with a life of its own. "Mom!" "No!" But it was too late. They were falling into a darkness that waited hungrily below, and the only whisper left was the sinister promise of the locket, now hidden in the depths of the forest. As they plummeted into the unknown, Sarah's thoughts raced. What awaited them down there? Was there any hope left in Westwood Pines, or were they now part of its eternal nightmare? Questions lit up in her mind, but there was no time. They were facing what lay hidden beneath the surface. The crushing darkness enveloped them in seconds. Sarah gasped as the air rushed out of her lungs, the sensation of falling swallowed by a silence that buzzed with foreboding. The fall seemed to stretch into eternity, light fading away into nothingness. "Emily!" Sarah shouted, her throat raw. Panic began to rise again like bile. She reached out into the void, grasping for her daughter. "Hold on. I'm right here." There was a sudden jolt, and they landed hard on a damp, uneven surface. The impact rattled through Sarah's bones. Pain shot up her legs, but she pushed it aside, frantic to find Emily. "Sweetheart, are you okay?" "I think so." Emily's voice trembled, barely more than a whisper in the darkness. "Mom, I can't see." Sarah fought to calm her racing heart. She felt around, her hands brushing against something wet and cold. The ground was slick beneath her fingers, crawling with a texture she didn't want to identify. "Stay close to me. We need to find a way out." Whispers curled around them, slithering through the shadows like something alive. Each hiss sent chills skittering down her spine. The air felt different here, charged with an electric fear that clung to her skin. Then, she heard it, a low, guttural growl, lingering in the air, echoing off unseen walls. It was near. Too close. They had to move. "Emily, let us go." She didn't give her daughter time to respond before pulling her toward what felt like a wall of rock. With each step, the growling grew more aggressive, circling them, taunting them. "Mom, it's too dark." Emily whimpered, but Sarah pressed on, urging her daughter forward. Suddenly, a flicker illuminated the space just ahead. The yellow-orange glow bobbed in the darkness, and for a moment, relief coursed through Sarah. Light! They stumbled forward, driven by the desire to escape the encroaching dread. But as they drew closer, the source of the light became clear, an old lantern, its flame sputtering as if it were struggling to survive. Scraps of old fabric were woven through the surrounding roots, drooping like broken masts. "I don't like this place, Mom." Emily's voice wavered, and the fear was palpable. "Neither do I, but we can't stay here." As she reached for the lantern, the ground beneath them transitioned into a swirling mist, shrouding their feet. Shadows flickered against the walls, writhing and twisting into forms that haunted Sarah's thoughts. She felt them watching, waiting for her to let her guard down. The whispers intensified, tearing at her sanity. "Help me, let me out." A new figure appeared, formed from the darkness, a woman with hollow eyes locked onto Sarah's. The ghostly figure seemed to swell from the very earth, a sad smile tugging at her lips as she reached out. "You can save me, stay back." Sarah shouted, instinct taking over. The fear shifted into anger, and she pulled Emily close, gripping her hand tighter. "We aren't here to help anyone." Mom. Emily's voice was barely a whisper, trembling against the whispers that grew even bolder, demanding attention, begging for deliverance. But how could she help a tortured soul when her own daughter was in danger? As the shadows churned, a deeper sense of urgency ignited within Sarah. She didn't have much time. "We have to find a way out of here now." But when she turned back toward the flickering lantern, it sparked out of existence. They were swallowed again by the oppressive blackness. The growling intensified, reverberating around them. It was hunting them. Trapped, Sarah's mind raced. "What do you want?" She screamed into the void, but only the echoes returned a twisted mockery of her despair. Then Emily fell to the ground, her small body trembling. "Mom, I can't breathe, stay with me." Panic ripped through Sarah's heart as she crouched beside her daughter, shaking her gently. They were not alone. A presence loomed in the dark, something terrible. In that moment, a flash of the locket swam in her mind, its shape carved into her thoughts like jagged teeth. What if it held the key to everything? "Please, let us go." Sarah cried out, desperate. But the forest thundered. Around them, trees creaking, roots shifting. The lurking darkness was awakening at last. "Mom, look!" Emily pointed into the night, her voice piercing the heavy atmosphere. A single pair of glowing eyes pierced through the shadows, locking onto Sarah with ferocity. "What do you want?" she begged, the urgency growing, tightening like a noose. The eyes narrowed, and the growl transformed. It was a promise of horror yet to come as the shadows surrounded them once more. Sarah clung to Emily, knowing the fight for their lives was just beginning. What darkness awaited them now? Would the forest release them or imprison them forever in its depths? With dread pooling in her stomach, she knew they had to find the locket if it was even still in reach. The shadows closed in, thick like fog, isolating them from any hint of light or hope. Sarah felt her heart thud loudly in her chest, matched only by the steadily rising growl that echoed around them. The eyes burned brighter, widening with hunger as they stalked closer. "Mom, I can't see it anymore." Emily gasped, clutching Sarah's arm tighter. "I don't like this place. I want to go home." "Me too," Sarah whispered, fear knotting her gut tighter and tighter. "But we need to keep moving." Ignoring the razor-thin whispers that promised to drown her sanity, Sarah pushed herself to her feet, wrapping a protective arm around Emily. She took a slow, deliberate step forward, feeling her way along the uneven ground, the damp earth squelching beneath their feet. "Stay close. Don't let go of my hand," she murmured, fighting to keep her voice steady. Emily nodded, though the tremors in her touch made it clear she was petrified. They moved slowly, every footfall swallowed by the eerie silence of the shadows around them. "Mom," Emily's voice quivered. "What if the thing finds us?" Sarah quickly glanced around, every single instinct screaming that it was already too late. "We'll have to face it if it does. Just trust me." With that, they advanced blindly into the dark, every rustling sound sending panic spiraling up Sarah's spine. The growling faded, replaced by a sickening silence that stank of decay. It was worse than the sound. Then, a flicker of light flared ahead, dull but persistent. Sarah felt a rush of hope, but it was swiftly squashed as the image of the extinguished lantern flashed in her mind. "Stay here," she instructed Emily, suppressing her urge to glance behind them. She stepped closer to investigate. As she neared, she could see it clearly. A small, dimly lit alcove carved into the stone walls of the cave. There, draped over a jagged outcrop, a tattered piece of fabric caught the glow, weaving sickly shadows on the damp ground. Whatever it was, it had stained the area with a pungent smell. "Mom, don't," Emily whispered, stepping forward as if to pull Sarah back, but it was too late. Compelled by a force she could not understand, Sarah reached out. The fabric was rough between her fingers. As she tugged it free, she felt the world shift. The fabric fell away to reveal pieces of rusty metal, a set of entwined chains, frayed and ominous. "What is this?" she muttered, her breath catching as she realized what it was. They were remnants of a shackle. Something had been bound here. The moment she touched it, the shadows surged closer, the growl erupting again in a furious chorus, deafening her ears. Sarah stumbled back, but Emily cried out, "Mom! Behind you!" She spun, desperate, her heart thudding as she met the burning eyes once more. But they were joined now by others, more glowing orbs emerging from the darkness, forming a ring around them. "No," Sarah breathed, fear freezing her in place. "No. We need to go." Guiding Emily backward, they stumbled deeper into the alcove. But the chains gripped her mind tighter, as if whispering secrets in her ear. With every ounce of strength, she fought the compulsion, focusing on Emily's wide eyes, filled with confusion and terror. Then, without warning, the ground beneath them rumbled like the growl of a monstrous beast. A rumble coursed through the cave, sending splinters of rock raining down around them. "Mom! We can't stay here!" Emily cried, her voice breaking through the suffocating darkness. "Then help me!" Sarah screamed back, clenching her jaw as she pulled the chain tighter against her chest, fixating on the spot they needed to reach. The whispers grew frantic, swirling around them, an unwanted symphony of voices begging for release. "Help us, free us!" As they reached the edge of the alcove, a sudden flash erupted, momentarily illuminating the twisted faces hidden in the gloom, a parade of tortured souls forever bound to the shadows. They stared at Sarah and Emily, mouths stretching into silent screams that resonated in deafening discord. But the reality hit Sarah like a punch. These souls were not waiting for salvation, they craved company in their suffering. "Run!" she shouted, wrenching Emily around as the walls shuddered, shadows clawing for them, always hungry, always watching. They crowded closer together, pushing through narrow gaps, striving to reach a light that flickered in the distance. They had to escape this nightmare. But as the daunting roars surrounded them, Sarah understood that whatever chain bound them to this darkness was far from ordinary. What had she awakened? And as the breathing darkness loomed behind them, the locket began to pulse against Sarah's chest, a heartbeat that felt disturbingly alive. What secret had it withheld all this time, and would it be enough to save them? Every instinct screamed at Sarah to run, but the pull of the chain in her hands was almost magnetic. It felt hot, alive, and as each second passed, the shadows drew nearer, hungry and desperate. She glanced back at Emily, whose eyes glistened with tears. "Mom! Please!" Emily cried, panicking. The sound ignited a fresh surge of urgency in Sarah. "Okay, let's go," she shouted, forcing her legs to move. They pushed deeper into the alcove, the light ahead flickering like a dying flame, promising both safety and danger. But the voices, they were louder now, whispering twisted tales of betrayal and despair. "Help us, free us," they clamored, an echoing chorus that sent a chill spiraling through Sarah's bones. Each word was laced with desperation, clawing at her sanity. "Don't listen to them," Sarah urged herself, but the voices seemed to know her thoughts. "You can join us. You belong with us. Set us free." A pang of guilt pierced her heart, as if she could feel the weight of their hopelessness. It was a temptation, pulling her toward the truth buried in the chains. "Mom!" Emily shouted again, dragging her back into the physical moment. "We need to go. Now!" A low growl erupted close behind them, snapping Sarah back to reality. She yanked Emily along, fleeing deeper into the cave. The air thickened, heavy with the stench of decay and despair. Shadows writhed and shifted, elongating as the source of the growls closed in. They finally stumbled into a new chamber larger, with remnants of what had once been a shelter. Broken furniture lay strewn about, splintered wood framing disintegrating as if the very cave was crumbling around them. Sarah's pulse quickened as she spotted a crevice to the left, a potential escape. "Emily, over there!" she shouted, pointing. But before they could dart for it, a loud crash erupted behind them. The ground trembled, stone raining down as a monstrous figure broke through the darkness. The full form was obscured, but its size was undeniable, towering over them, exuding an aura of malevolence. "Run!" Sarah screamed, high-pitched and frantic, propelling Emily forward. They dashed toward the crevice, weaving their way through debris, the beast's growl just a breath away. When they reached the narrow opening, Sarah squeezed through first, pulling Emily behind her. It was tight, their bodies rubbing against cold stone as panic surged. She could feel hot, rancid breath near the exit, a hungry panting that clawed at her sanity. "Almost there," Sarah rasped, pushing Emily ahead. As soon as they slipped through, they tumbled into another tunnel, this one leading upward, as if it might offer a way out. But hope was evasive, the shadows crept along the walls, reaching for them. The chilling growl echoed after them, now mingled with maniacal laughter that was both anguished and delighted. It resonated through her, filling her with dread. Then the tunnel narrowed again, forcing them to a crawl. Sarah pressed on, the pulse of the locket hammering against her chest, each throb a reminder of unseen danger. Then, without warning, she heard a whisper, soft, chilling, wrapping around her mind like a vice. "Join us, Sarah, you can't escape what you've awakened." The locket burned against her skin, a fearful warmth that begged for release. In desperation, Sarah forced her attention back to Emily. Her daughter's pale face glimmered with tears, her eyes dark as she fought against fear. "Mom, what is it saying?" Emily panted, her voice a mere whisper. "I don't know. We just have to keep moving," Sarah replied, but doubt gnawed at her insides. They stumbled upon another opening, a faint glow spilling from within. The call of safety was irresistible, but as they neared, they froze in place. Shapes could be seen, shadows moving in an impossible dance, haunting figures just beyond reach. "What is happening?" Emily whispered, her voice trembling. "We have to find out or it will find us," Sarah muttered, the weight of the chain still alive in her grasp, urging her forward despite the growing dread. As they stepped into the light, a loud cacophony erupted behind them, shadows retreating and converging, screaming in discordant harmony. And just as they crossed the threshold, Sarah felt the locket pulse one last time, and the world fell silent. What awaited them in the shimmering light? And would it lead them to safety or to an even darker fate? The light enveloped them, wrapping around their trembling forms like a shroud. Sarah blinked, struggling to adjust. The luminescence flickered, casting long, eerie shadows on the walls. They found themselves in a vast chamber, wider than any they had encountered before. Glowing crystals protruded from the walls, refracting light in unnatural colors that danced like ghosts. "Is this safe?" Emily's voice trembled, and Sarah could see her daughter's fear reflected in her wide, innocent eyes. "I don't know," Sarah admitted, heart racing. She stepped forward cautiously, the chain cold and heavy in her grip. An unsettling silence wrapped around them, broken only by the echoes of their own footsteps. Every sound seemed amplified, as if the walls were thirsting for their whispers. Suddenly, the flickering light pulsed independently, creating a rhythm that mimicked her racing heartbeat. Shadows darted at the edge of her vision, making her skin crawl. "Mom?" Emily's voice was barely above a whisper, each syllable quaking. "What if they come for us?" Before Sarah could answer, the ground rumbled. Cracks began to spiderweb across the floor, dust cascading like dark fireworks. She reached for Emily, pulling her close. "Stay with me." The chamber darkened momentarily, plunging them into uncertainty. Shadows burst forth from the corners, a twisting mass of flailing limbs and ghastly faces. The images of the hopeless souls that the voices had whispered about materialized, forms twisted in endless torment. The very air grew thick with despair. "No!" Sarah gasped, backing away. These were the figures that haunted her dreams, faces she never wanted to see. "Mom! They're coming!" Emily shrieked, clutching her mother's arm. The panic in her voice ignited a new surge of terror. The luminous crystals flickered erratically, sending shadows leaping in all directions. "We need to find another way out," Sarah cried, her mind racing. They darted across the uneven ground, searching for an exit. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of sorrowful pleas merging into one haunting melody. "Help us, join us, I don't want to join you," Sarah shouted into the inky darkness, clutching the locket tightly. It throbbed in her hand, nearly burning her skin. And then she saw it, a narrow passage to the left, partially shrouded in darkness. "Emily, over there. Quick!" They bolted toward it, the specters behind them screeching with anguish. The sound burrowed deep into her bones, paralyzing her with uncertainty. As they entered the dark passage, Sarah felt a sharp sting against her wrist. She looked down, horrified to find a shadowy tendril wrapping around her. It pulsed with malevolence, tugging her back. "Mom!" Emily cried, horror etched on her face. "Push forward. Don't look back," Sarah yelled, fighting against the grip on her wrist. With sheer determination, she ripped her arm away, gashing her skin against the jagged edge of the tunnel. Blood trickled, a grim reminder of their dire situation. Yet, she didn't stop, each step fueled by the instinct to protect Emily. They emerged into a colder chamber than before, the walls thick with something wet and foul. The air hung heavy, making it hard to breathe. Breathless, Sarah turned to look behind them, dread rolling over her. The dark figures pulsed against the light, contained but hungry. They clustered at the passage's mouth, their faces morphing from sorrow to rage. "You'll never escape. You've awakened us. What does it mean?" Emily whispered, shaking. "I don't know," Sarah breathed, panic clawing at her throat as she scanned the room for anything that could help them. Suddenly, the pulse of the locket flared, and for a brief moment, the shadows flickered as if caught in a static shock. The whispers turned into screams, echoing in agonized fury. Sarah took a step back, her heart pounding, but then she noticed something glowing faintly on the far wall. Could it be a way out? Hope ignited within her. "Emily, we need to go now." As they rushed toward the glow, the whispers turned into thunderous shouts, drowning out all other sounds. The shadows clawed their way forward, angry and relentless. Just as they reached the source, the ground shook violently, and a crack opened beneath them. "Mom!" And then, everything fell apart. Would their next move lead them to salvation, or had they just sealed their fate? The ground heaved beneath Sarah and Emily as they stumbled, arms flailing in a desperate attempt to regain balance. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest, a primal scream trapped in her throat. The faint glow on the wall beckoned, seductive yet foreboding, illuminating the encroaching shadows that snaked like grotesque serpents. "Mom, what do we do?" Emily's voice pierced through the chaos, raw and wide-eyed with terror. "Hold on to me," Sarah shouted, the grip on her daughter tightening, as they teetered over the growing chasm. Dark laughter echoed from the abyss, chilling her bones as if the unseen entities were mocking their struggle. The glowing object shimmered, revealing itself to be a pulsating orb, encased in jagged rock. It radiated a heat that seemed to push back the shadows, a flicker of light amidst the suffocating darkness. "Is it safe?" Emily whispered, glancing toward the shadows that writhed hungrily. "I don't know." The tremors intensified, splitting the ground wider. With every pulse of the orb, the shadows writhed and recoiled, their whispers morphing into twisted taunts. "Join us, be as one, Jemay," the word crashed into Sarah's mind, echoing against her resolve. No. Not her. Not Emily. With one last look at the orb, Sarah dragged her daughter along, heart pounding as they searched for an exit. The uncaring walls seemed to shift, each turn feeling like a woefully spun web of confusion. The shadows lunged toward them, tendrils reaching out, barbed fingers stretching, desperate to claim them. "You can't escape truth. You awakened our secrets. Run," she urged, adrenaline spurring them forward. The air turned dense and stale, weighted with the scent of decay. She could feel terror gnawing at her sanity. There has to be something here. In a slight alcove to the right, shrouded in darkness, salvation glimmered. An utterly worn door stood half ajar, glints of a deeper blue light seeping through the crack. "Mom!" Emily's breathless plea shattered the oppressive silence between them. "Just a little further, sweetheart." As they rushed toward the door, the ground beneath them finally split apart, sending debris tumbling into the abyss below. With a final push, they lunged through the opening, the shadows swirling just inches behind, seething and hissing. They fell into a narrow corridor, the door slamming shut behind them with a bone-jarring thud. Hearing the ominous thud echoed above, panic surged anew. "What's happening? Are we safe?" Emily's eyes shone with tears, streaming down her dirt-streaked face. I think so." Sarah's words faltered. The door shuddered, a dark pulse growing from the other side as if the shadows outside were trying to reclaim them. Around them, the corridor stretched endlessly, walls pulsating with energy that felt both alive and dead. Twists of uncharted darkness awaited in every direction. With each step they took, a chill raced up Sarah's spine, instinctively warning her that they were not alone. A faint whisper caressed Sarah's ear, a chilling breath against her skin. "You should have joined us. What was that?" Emily cried, inching closer to her mother. "I don't know, baby." Panic fluttered in her chest, a gnawing fear that she and Emily hadn't escaped at all. They had merely entered a different kind of hell. The corridor opened into a cavernous expanse, veins of light streaking the dark with strange colors. Ahead, something flickered, shifting and beckoning. "Mom, what if it's worse?" "I don't know, but we have to move." With uncertainty hanging in the air, they took their first cautious steps into the terrifying unknown once more. Emotions surged: hope, fear, despair, an internal storm brewing as the whispers began again. "Come back, we know your sins." And as they ventured deeper, a single thought loomed: what had they truly awakened? Moments later, the cavern trembled, the ground shaking violently. What if the cliff they were teetering on wasn't one of stone, but something far worse? The cavern's tremors intensified, a symphony of grating stone and distant cries reverberating through the air. Sarah's heart raced as sweat trickled down her spine, the very foundation of her fragile reality threatening to collapse. Grabbing Emily's hand, she pressed onward, the flickering light ahead now a distant hope amid swirling dread. "Keep moving, Em," Sarah urged, glancing back as shadows twisted and squirmed, their shapes blending into the darkness like malicious phantoms hunting prey. The weight of their whispers filled her ears, a cacophony of lost souls echoing their eternal torment. "We have to find a way out." The walls seemed to close in, the vibrant veins of color pulsating menacingly as if the very rock hungered for their despair. Each step brought them closer to the unknown, the flickering light growing stronger, horrifyingly inviting. With every breath, Sarah felt the tendrils of fear creeping deeper into her mind, threatening to squeeze the air from her lungs. Emily stumbled behind her, gasping for breath. "I don't want to be here, Mom." "What is that light?" "I don't know, Emily, but we can't stop." The desperation in Sarah's voice weighed heavy in the air. They moved closer, and the light became more defined, a swirling mass that danced like fireflies caught in a dark breeze. The whispers morphed into taunts, low growls mixing in. "Do you wish to know? Discover your truth." The seductive tone curled around them, wrapping Sarah in an icy embrace. "Join us, be whole, Mom, it sounds like it's calling us." Emily's voice quavered, sounding as if she was fighting back tears. Each word struck Sarah like a slap, stirring a deep-rooted sense of dread. "We have to ignore it. Hold on to me." But the deeper they went, the harder it became to push back against the seductive pull of the light. It flickered more aggressively now, a beacon promising answers to questions born from shame and guilt. As they reached the source, the shape of the light revealed itself: a mirror, suspended in a frame of twisted metal, glinted ominously. The surface rippled as if alive, distorting their reflections into grotesque caricatures. Sarah recoiled. "No. We don't need to look." But something compelled her to step closer. A part of her longed to peer inside, to confront the sins that had haunted her, the choices she had made, the darkness she tried to bury. "Mom, please. Don't look." Emily's voice quivered, urgent and pleading. "Not now, Em. We can't." Yet the pull was overwhelming, and Sarah could feel her resolve crumbling. Suddenly, the cavern shook again, more violently than before. The mirror rippled madly, changeable shadows framing the glass, those lost souls reaching through the surface, their mouths agape in silent cries for release. "Join us. Embrace the truth." With panic swelling, Sarah stepped back, adrenaline surging through her veins. "No. We want tea." Just as she turned to pull Emily away, a cacophony erupted, echoing through the expanse. The ground cracked beneath them, and rubble began to rain from the ceiling. "Mom! What's happening?" Emily screamed, tugging on Sarah's arm. "Hold on!" Sarah shouted, adrenaline coursing her veins like wildfire as she tugged Emily away from the mirage before them. But the mirror screamed back a wail that resonated deep within Sarah's chest, a sound that echoed emotions long buried. You cannot escape your past. It will consume you. They sprinted, the ground rumbling, rocks crashing down as shadows swarmed around them. But something else moved in the distance. A figure cloaked in darkness emerged, stepping forth from the shadows. With movements almost liquid, it reached for them. Run! Sarah yelled, but they were trapped in a nightmarish reality where escape was an illusion. Out of fear and desperation, Sarah vowed she would protect her daughter, but how against what loomed? Right then, a chilling thought gripped her. Why had they come here? What darkness had they unearthed within themselves? As they raced away from the figure, the cavern splitting open and swallowing parts of the ground, the promise of hidden secrets surfaced, unrelentingly dark, tempting, and silent. And as shadows closed in, a new terror dawned. What if what was lurking just behind was not just a reflection of their sins, but something willing to take them down into permanent darkness? The chaos echoed in the cavern, each gasp drawing Sarah deeper into desperation. With the malevolent figure rising from the shadows, time felt suspended, every second echoing with her beating heart. Suddenly, clarity broke through her fear. This was not just about survival. It was about confronting the shadows of their past, the secrets buried in Westwood Pines. Emily, we have to face it. Sarah shouted as they stumbled forward, spiraling toward the pulsating glow of the mirror. It's the only way out. Mom, no. Emily's eyes were wide, panic spilling over. But Sarah took a deep breath, ignoring the icy dread snaking down her spine. Trust me. We can't keep running. We need to confront what we've awakened. The shadows rushed closer, the voices of the damned turning into a tangible force. But amid the chaos, Sarah felt a flicker of hope igniting within her. We have to fight back against the darkness. It can't control us. They halted in front of the mirror, the distorted reflections taunting them. Sarah hesitated for only a moment, then surged forward, wrapping her fingers around Emily's trembling hand. Together, they faced the warped glass, the faces reaching out, twisted by torment. What do you want? Sarah shouted into the reflection, her voice a thin thread woven with resolve. Freedom! Screamed the figures, a wall of anguish breaking through. You can't escape the truth. Embrace it. The walls quaked, but instead of fear, purpose surged within Sarah. We are not your captives. Our choices do not define us. Fury erupted from her heart, igniting a spark of courage. Emily squeezed her hand. Tell them, Mom. We're not afraid. As if the words had broken through a dam, the mirror shimmered, echoes of the tortured cries transforming. Instead of fear, they conjured images of warmth, laughter, and the solace of family. Memories rushed forth, colorful and vivid, a tapestry of joys and sorrows. We've faced our fears. We will find our way. Sarah shouted, her voice firm as she gazed into her own reflection, strong, resilient, and fierce. Suddenly, the shadowy figure lunged, dark tendrils reaching toward them, but Sarah clutched Emily tighter. We will not be consumed. In one heart-stopping moment, the mirror exploded with light, engulfing the cavern. The whisper solidified into a deafening roar, but beneath it all, a single voice emerged, resonating with compassion. You have the power to sever the chains binding us. That stark realization propelled Sarah forward. We release you. She cried, feeling the weight of the locket against her chest, throbbing in rhythm with her heart. You do not control us. We are defined by our love, our choices, and our redemption. The darkness twisted and writhed, a storm of emotion crashing around them. The figures shrieked, their anguished faces fading, retreating from the brilliance of the truth they couldn't withstand. The chains drew back, forsaking their connections as the cavern heaved and groaned under the release. Finally, a wave of warmth flooded through as the shadows collapsed into nothingness, consumed by the purity of their defiance. The glow enveloped Sarah and Emily, washing over them like a gentle tide. And just like that, they were outside, under the comforting embrace of starlight. The chilling weight of the woods had dissipated, leaving behind the crisp, fresh air of freedom. "Mom," Emily breathed, or reflecting in her eyes. "We did it." "We did," Sarah whispered, tears of relief streaming down her face as she held her daughter close. "We faced it together." The woods, once sinister and suffocating, now stood as silent witnesses to their triumph. The whispered secrets of Westwood Pines had lost their power over them. As they turned to leave, the remnants of the forest twisted gently in the night breeze, reminding them that the shadows would always linger but that light and love will always prevail. With a renewed strength, Sarah walked hand in hand with Emily, knowing the road ahead would be different. They had faced the darkness and emerged, scarred but unbroken. Hey, before we go further, remember to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. You need to subscribe now to stay in the loop. Also, smash that like button now if you enjoyed this conclusion. It really feeds the algorithm and helps us share these thrilling tales. Make sure to flood the comments section with your thoughts and reactions about everything that just happened and what you think the ending means. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans know the importance of supporting the channel. Your engagement makes all the difference. Thank you for joining us on this journey.